I got to think a minute here, Austin. I got to think of where I'm at.
Kumbaya.
Kumbaya. Welcome back to Dynasty Football Maniacs. So today we're gonna go ahead and just have a general discussion about what we've seen going on in the NFL, where players have landed, situations that have done arose. Been a lot of excitement during this free agency time, and I know we did a free agency episode, and this is not a recap yet. We're not got to that point. I haven't put that information together. That'll be later on down the road. This is just we're just gonna discuss the general impact of certain situations we see out there in the NFL. And also, we're going to discuss how to build your dynasty league, start your dynasty league, platforms you can choose from, what's best. It's all opinionated, so we're not advertising anybody out there. This is just me and Austin's opinions. By no means are we advertising any platform or saying this one's better than that one. This is just our opinion, and him and me both has played on multiple platforms. So the
Yep.
platforms we speak about, we've been there, we've seen it, and this is where we're at right now in our fantasy football journey, if you would want to call it that. And then we also do redraft, best ball, and we're not going to get too much into the redraft and best ball. We'll talk on down the line a little bit about them because they're a topic themselves. So today's focus just on dynasty impacts and what is going on in the NFL. That is wow. So, what do you see so far, Austin?
Uh, there's a there's a lot going on. There's a lot to honestly, there's still a lot to process too, and you're wondering now after free agency, it's died down a little bit, obviously, from the last week or a couple of weeks, with making the big splashes and stuff, but there's still a little stuff going on here and there. There's still some free agents that are still out there that could potentially hop onto a team that might impact dynasty. And it might be a very small way, but at the same time, depending on the depth chart, like talking to you Chargers, they could, sign somebody who you think who would usually be irrelevant, but depending on how their depth chart looks, could be, actually an impact. So, I mean, there's still some people out there that could actually make a, relevant case for themselves or a resurgence or something, even with the draft still coming.
Yes, I do. I believe players can always come out and have a bad off season and then just come back and just do very well. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you never know who's going to do good and who's not because there's so many examples out there of players that were like way above everybody else and no one ever thought any different. And just the injury itself ends all that. So, a
Yeah.
prime example is Michael Thomas. A lot of people don't remember him back in the day, but there was 4 solid years. If you look at his stats, they're way better than what you see in Justin Jefferson or any of them. And that's before Justin Jefferson's time. But on his 4th year, when he had that foot injury, he pulled that first injury. From there on, you never seen that guy again. And you could throw his stats up side by side. There is no argument. I mean, touchdown, yards, everything. The guy was, but no one ever seen that coming. It was an injury. And then look, he's struggled since then. He's never been the same guy we seen back in 2019.
Because he just can't stay healthy. I think after that foot injury happened, he would come back, everybody get excited about him, and
Yeah.
then he just get hurt again, and he's just been kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
not only in
it
dynasty.
really depends on the injury. You can't just say it's him himself. I mean, some injuries are so bad. Deion Sanders talks about his injury to this day. He still suffers from his football injury.
Well, I mean,
So,
when
I mean, when you do extraordinary things and you do things that are more capable than what your body can handle and you injured that body, and then some players never suffer that degree of injury. Like, I mean, there's some players that play. Julio Jones played many years before it was more age that got him, and then slowly injuries started piling on. But
yeah, but Michael Thomas has just been hurt constantly. I mean,
his first four
you
years, he
know,
was never injured.
then after that, he's never been the same. I
No,
mean,
he's never been the same. That's what I'm pointing out. I mean, you don't know when that point in time is going to change. I'm not
I
saying
mean,
he's a relevant player. I'm saying you as a person, as us in fantasy football, you don't know who's going to be there tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day.
Well, that's just in life in general, my brother.
Yeah, that's life in general. Some people think, I got this banged up team. I've done this, I've done that. Next year, I'm going to do that again. You don't know what tomorrow brings. I mean, it's all how you adjust and how you manage. If you have an injured player, you go out and get the next best thing off the waiver
But
wire to try to fill that spot.
but here's the thing: if the NFL officially labels you an injury prone, more likely you're going to be. You might as well go ahead and be prepared for that player missing some time because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, when the NFL actually deems a player injury prone, it kind of brings itself back up. It rears its ugly head. So you need to be prepared for that if you're
Yep.
going to take a chance on somebody who's got injury prone status thrown on them.
Definitely. Once that point hits, you got to start thinking about that. And then there's that, like you said, there's that one exception that has that injury, he starts to get that tag, and then that tag goes away because
Yep.
they were able to overcome it. A good example, a recent example is Christian McCaffrey. 2 years
Yep.
straight, suffered injuries. People starting to get worried. But the funny thing is, he kept staying relevant, just like the other players. They stayed relevant for a couple of years after their injury. But after so long, they can't stay relevant if they don't recuperate and come back. This guy came back and did just as extraordinary of what he did when he left. So it was like,
Because
okay,
he finally figured out how to take care of his body.
yep. And that's the key
He,
is taking care of yourself.
he finally figured out, okay, I need to actually go to some experts or somebody to help me out with how do I need to take these hits, or how do
Yep.
I need to fall, or how I need to do this or this.
Two is another example. He was struggling last year. Everybody thought it was like his retirement, and this year he did good. He come back. He stayed relevant. I mean, he's has potentials down in Miami still. I mean, he learned how to take a hit. He learned how to survive a hit. How many concussions did you hear him have this year? I can't remember of one. He was like not even talked about. But
Mm-hmm.
last year it was the biggest conversation in the NFL, especially in fantasy football. But now this year was a very bad year for quarterbacks. Just Tua wasn't part of that mix. I mean, it was a carousel of quarterbacks. I've watched teams that were doing real well at the beginning of the
Oh,
season
there
was
were.
winning, and then all of a sudden they had nobody in their quarterback room, and I was selling. This is no lie. I was ripping people off in multiple leagues with backup quarterbacks. So I was trying to get what I could get out of it to survive myself. And that goes back to the relevancy. So in dynasties play different than redraft. If you don't know what dynasty is, dynasty football is you build a team, you keep the players, and you build off onto the rookies, just like the NFL's doing. So you can do just offense in a defensive team. Our leagues are a little deeper. We do offensive and defense. I mean, so in that process, you have to manage who you have there and what you're going to do the next season. Because the next, like, say, at one point in the season, you're going to know if you're a rebuild team or you're going to be the team that's going to take it all the way. So if I'm a team that's like, say, I'm at that point and I know I can take it all the way, and someone says, I want your first rounds for Christian McCaffrey and I want this and this, but it's not really going to hurt my team, but that Christian McCaffrey is definitely going to put me on the championship run for guaranteed, I would then sacrifice some first rounds at that point to win that championship. Now, if I'm 7-0 or 0-7, and I've lost 7 games straight, and some guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna trade you Christian McCaffrey. I'll help beef up your team, but I want a load like every other star player that you have." I'm not going to do that because at that point, I know I'm a rebuild. I look at Christian McCaffrey, how many more years he's got. I look at what kind of draft picks I'm going to end up with or what I already have. And then I decide, okay, at this point, what do I want to do? Where am I weak and who am I going to rebuild? And then, okay, I got a lot of veterans on my team. So these are the people I want to cut. These are the people I want to replace. I got a couple 4-year guys in there that are really good stars. I want to hold on to them to get that potential next year doing that run. So and the funny thing is you've experienced this in a league where a player was dead last, had that bottom ring, and then at the end of the season they pulled it out and won the championship the next season. That's because they had a plan. They knew they were bottomed out. They knew they were on a rebuild team, and they built it.
I
So
I think honestly, I think you need a mixture of both youth and
Oh yeah,
little
definitely.
veterans, and because if you just go strictly youth, it's going to take you probably at least 2 years, possibly three, just to get them to the point to where they're actually, you know, relevant and like actually, built themselves into the team to where they're like, I'm the guy. This is, I'm like a top 10 guy. And then, but if you just go all, veterans, then you're just like, well, I literally just have like maybe a 1 year window, maybe two, because
Yeah,
the NFL, there's like, well, okay, well, you're already like 28, 29, 30.
yeah,
We don't treasure you that much because we need to get younger. So we're just going to kick you out, bring somebody else who's younger. So I think there is you need to have a good, you don't have to go like just straight up 50-50, be like 50% veteran, 50% youth, but it's really good to have, proven players along with, your hopeful they're going to prove something. I would say good ratio would probably be like, 60-40. Have a little bit more veterans, but at the same time have a pretty good bit of youth, even if they're sitting on the bench or your taxi squad. I mean, that's just still more potential for the future or whenever the veterans, especially in the NFL too, with the revolving carousel that the NFL is always doing. You can always, it better prepare yourself for, okay, well, these guys are gone. Now the guys that I've held on for a year, maybe two, are now stepping in. So I don't have to go and scramble around trying to, make a big trade or a deal to try to replace this spot because I already had the youth in the back and now it's their time. So I mean, some people, some people they're always trading their draft picks every year because you know now I get it's the name of the game of trying to win, but at the same time, you know, just like you using your credit card all the time, if you don't pay it, creditors are going to start coming knocking
yeah.
eventually, just like you giving away all your draft picks every single year, eventually it's going to catch up with your team. You're not going to be able to fill up the youth, and then you're just stuck holding the bag with everybody hoping. Well, at least I hope they can at least top the top 25. I hope they do, anyways.
So, like, give you a real big perspective, and you're probably not even going to see this coming, and maybe you already knew I was going to talk about this, but let's talk about Dalvin Cook. He left Minnesota, and what have you seen? Nothing. Well, but before you say anything, where did he finish last year before that happened? Where do you think he finished in the rankings for running back? I'll tell you,
Okay.
it just real make it simple so you don't have to look for it. He was number
Okay.
6. He was number 6 overall, best running back. The only person behind him was Miles Sanders, Barkley, Nick Chubbs, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs. A lot of people don't realize is you got a older veteran on that doesn't agree with the contract. They're released. They go to a different environment. You don't know what that environment impact's going to do to that player. You don't know what's going to happen because if I was a guy in 2022 with Dalvin Cook, I was thinking, well, I got my running back one. Well, this year he's no running back one, but that year he was a running back. So that's how quick this could change. So if people don't understand, I mean, that's just how the NFL is. It sways so quickly. You think you have your running back one, and that's the ideal why you have to do your research on your rookies in dynasties because you got to understand. Good example is there is a guy that blew out this last year in 23, Kieran Williams. Who's seen that coming? I didn't see it coming. He wasn't even on my radar. He was on a waiver wire when he became successful. And somebody ended up lucky with him in 2023, and I'm sure they're not going to release him anytime soon. But I mean, his second year in the NFL, and here he is. He's like,
Yeah,
wow.
but I think you need to be careful with. He did really spectacular last year, but I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit because I don't really see him repeating the same thing again. And another people of a lot, especially dynasty managers. Sometimes I'm a little guilty of it myself, but I see a guy who just exploded last year, and I'm like, oh, I really want them on my team because I think they're going to contribute and help. But but sometimes we just forget about, well, it's almost nearly impossible to repeat the same success over year in, year out.
Well,
Only the elites really consistently, put on, like in Dynasty and top 10 performances every
yeah.
year and stuff.
And the funny
And
thing,
and
and
a
not
lot of
to,
times it it's it could be different things. It could be like, they got hurt, or they drafted somebody else in there who started taking some of the targets away, or they got a offensive coordinator who has got a different philosophy than what they had last year, who wants to run the ball more than throw the ball, or wants to throw the ball more than run the ball.
yeah.
There's just so much variables to dynasty. That's why paying attention through the off season is so important,
Yes,
because
that's what I'm trying to get a point
the,
is
the trajectory of your players all determine where everything, whatever happens, and where everyone goes, especially coaches. It's really important to know where they go because of their mindset. Because
yeah.
now look, when Greg Roman goes to the Chargers, now Keenan Allen, he would not have been. It's actually a better move for him to be traded to the Bears, because he is not going to do what he did last year with Greg Roman running that offense, because of how much he loves to run the ball. Now, whoever there right now, there's rumors saying that they always talk, oh well, Gus Edwards going to be our guy. Well, that's because that's literally who they all have right now.
Yeah.
But I think but that's why it's really important to, even, some people log off during the off season, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, I'll catch back up whenever he gets closer to, our rookie draft, and then I'll, get all caught up with, when we get closer to the preseason and season. And my opinion, that's a mistake, because if you're really not keeping up with everything that's going on, you're missing out on a lot of important information. You're missing out on key trades you could possibly trade to make your team better. And, you're literally going to be holding the bag, wondering, you'll be like, well, damn, maybe I should have actually paid attention, when you're picking probably, in the 101, 102, or 103 coming into next year, because you just wanted to check out during the off season.
So last off season, this 23. I'm going back to 22 when Dalvin Cook was ranked 6. Prior to that, Dalvin Cook was always in the top 10. He was at the
Yeah.
top 10. He was the guy to draft. And
Yeah.
what I was just trying to point out is someone had a conversation with me the other day, and it's like, oh, Dalvin Cook was losing his step. Yes, there's some running backs that was losing his step. Dalvin Cook wanted money. He didn't get his money. He left. He went to a situation that he thought he was going to get play time. He didn't get no play time. So basically, he had a year gap of nothing. If you look at how many attempts he had versus anything in his past, I could count the attempts.
That's
Or
crazy. What's crazy to me? I didn't really think Dalvin was losing his step.
he never lost his step. He just got put in a situation that didn't let him
I,
play.
I just
I,
think
I
I
mean,
just I just think what it was is just, well, obviously he wanted to get paid like all the other running backs last year. They wanted to get paid, but teams didn't want to pay the running back, so they were just literally slapping franchise tag on everybody. And he
yeah.
was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "No, I really don't want to do that. I want to be, paid, because I mean, let's be for real. Before even Justin Jefferson started becoming the big thing he was, the Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook, it was the Dalvin Cook's team.
Yeah.
It was Dalvin Cook's team before Justin Jefferson became the identity of that offense, and they were
Yeah.
just slinging the ball constantly. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can say he was. I mean, some people are going to argue that he might have been losing a step. I mean, I will say I didn't. I don't think he lost a step. I just think that shoulder that he hurt, I think that was really giving him problems, especially at the end of the career with Minnesota, because he heard it, and then he come back during the game and just explode. But then after that explosion game, when he would come back, he'd be a little bit more diligent because that shoulder that was kind of bothering him until he finally got surgery on it, because he was playing with that shoulder surgery injury until he finally got that shoulder fixed. Then by the time that happened, they were like, "Oh, we want to move on because you want more money, and we don't want to give you more money because you're 27 at the time. We want to go younger, and we see the Minnesota Vikings, in my opinion, fell for the old time bait of, oh look, our backup just whenever he got thrown in, he did some explosive stuff. So we think he's going to be the next guy. So we're just going to let you go, and we'll have our backup come in and fill in and do just stuff like you did."
So
But
let
now,
me throw something scary out there to you, and I totally agree with what you're saying. And I don't mean to jump off this subject, but as I sit here talking to you and looking at a stat, I was like, my eyes just got, because I didn't even realize that went on in 2022. But I don't know if you knew it went on either, because now I'm starting to wonder, well, maybe I missed something, and now I'm seeing something that I didn't see before, and now I'm like, let's start a little different conversation here. You
okay,
ready for it?
yeah, let's do it. I want to
All
hear it.
right, so I'm looking at the running backs, and I'm gonna go through. This is 2022. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we knew Josh Jacob balled that year. He was balling for a contract. There was no hands down. That man was playing for everything he had. Derrick
Yeah.
Henry is the king. Number two. No debate about that. Nick Chubb's, what happened to him? Everybody quit talking about it because of injury at the beginning of the season of 23, but 22, he was number three. Barkley finally was starting to get that injury prone tag, but then I think he redeemed himself. I think he is now, like, people are not as afraid as they were, because every time he comes back from the injury, he's in the top 10. I mean, he's never finished outside the top 10 when he's not injured. He's kind of like your Christian McCaffrey. Uh, but I still give Christian McCaffrey an edge. Just saying, not favoritism, just a little edge. Miles Sanders, he did really well with Philadelphia. I mean, that was his last season with Philadelphia, but Philadelphia had an O line that was killing it that year. So that Miles Sanders usually is not in the top 10 if you
Well,
do
you want
some
to know?
history studies.
Well, you want to know what's crazy?
Uh-huh.
I know you take Christian McCaffrey over Saquon, but Saquon and Christian McCaffrey are the same age. Did you know that?
No, I didn't pay attention to that.
To be honest with
Interesting.
and to be honest with you, I thought Christian McCaffrey was older than Saquon.
I did too. Wow.
It feels like Christian McCaffrey has been in the league for going on down 8 years now, 9 years.
Well, Christian McCaffrey left before he was a senior, I believe. And Barkley stayed with Penn State all the way to his senior year. I don't think he went in early. I don't know. I might need to look at that. I don't know. Let's not quote me on that. Then number 6, as we just talked about, Dalvin Cook. And I think next year is his redemption year. I think he's not going to be a top 10 finisher, but I think wherever he goes, we're going to see him in the 20s. And I think people are going to respect him because what he did at the end with Baltimore, I think everybody sees that he might have another
Mm,
year, but he's not going to be the main back. They're going to put someone with him. It'll be only
I don't,
make sense for the age.
if he did go somewhere, I don't think he would get. I don't think he would break the top 20.
Yeah. So let's talk about number 7. I don't know if we're ready for number 7. So the
Well, who
number
is number
7 running
7?
back for 2022 was Justin Fields, a quarterback. Now, he had half the snaps, half the attempts of everybody above him. He had over 1,000 yards, 1,143 yards. His average was 7.1 on running. His long was 67. He done more with his attempts than anybody I named in the top 6. Plus, he was a
Well,
quarterback. Now, we're going to the Chicago Bears offense, and we are going to Justin Fields. His problem is he can't stay in the pocket. He wants to run the ball.
well,
He
I
doesn't
mean,
have that control.
you would be number 7 too if you could just constantly ran the whole damn time.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I didn't realize he was that high ranked in running backs
No,
until
I mean the dude was running for his life the whole time.
That's true. So let's see in 23 on a regular season where he finished at rushing. And let's see if they got him not running so much. And I don't see him in the top list anymore. He's not 7 next year. There's all running backs. I would expect to see Lamar Jackson before I seen Justin Fields. And Lamar Jackson was way down there a little bit because he's always in the mid-20s. That's because Lamar is Lamar. He knows how to take care of his body. He will run when he needs to, and when he runs, he's very dangerous. But he also could put it in the pocket, and you don't know where that ball is going, and
Well,
he gets it where he needs to go.
for a minute there, everybody was scared that he didn't know how to take care of his body when he missed the last 2 seasons, especially the important playoff games. He
Yeah.
hurt himself too. So for a while there, everybody was terrified of if he knew how to take care of his body or not.
So this season, Justin Fields is ranked 35 as a running back. He's the second quarterback that I've seen on the list, all the way down to 35. So there's only 2 quarterbacks in that running back ranking up to 35, and that's Lamar Jackson's 22 and he is 35. So it sounds like he got a little bit better at passing the ball, but
Well, because if you look at the offensive change that the Ravens did, because in 2022, Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, and Lamar still ran the ball, but they handed it off to the running back a lot. And then this past year, they switched to the offensive coordinator who wanted to pass the ball more. So Lamar actually got to show more of his passing ability more. He still ran the ball. There was still a lot of design runs for him too, which this is the difference between Justin Fields and Lamar because of how everything was going out. Lamar had a lot of design runs, and Justin Fields, he had some, but most of his came from him basically running away, just trying to survive, because
yes.
the Bears' offense total was kind of a disaster the past few years. So he was running for his life, and plus a lot of times he just took off just to take off too, which in some cases he could have stayed in the pocket and actually throw it over the top and probably had a better shot at it too. But who's to say, give or take, tomato, tomato.
Right.
But, you know, it's just interesting. But, you know, it's a very interesting world whenever you have a running back who can or a quarterback who can literally just run the ball whenever he wants to.
Right. So that goes into the if you're not keeping up with football, let me introduce you to something. So the Steelers signed a small contract with Russell Wilson from Denver, and they traded the Bears for a 6th rounder to get Justin Fields.
It could.
Whoa! Now, no, let me finish.
I was
I
going to
gotta go
I
ahead.
was, as only as this is only the pick though. If Justin Fields could, but if he plays, I think it was 70% of the
No,
games.
51%. 51% of the snaps
Well,
they
this
have
was
to give away. That's what I'm reading right here is his contract.
there
So
was
what?
something else that I saw too, but the
Yeah,
pick. I mean, the 51%. Yeah, that was for the
4th rounder.
pick that could go turn it into a fourth rounder.
Yep.
But
So if he plays more than 51% of the games, the Pittsburgh Steelers loses a 4th rounder to the Bears. Now, if he plays less than 51% of the games, all the Bears is giving away is a 6th rounder. Now, there's a catch to this, and this is where I'm kind of blown away. Because if I was sitting here not thinking and looking at stats, I would always put Justin Fields ahead of Russell Wilson every day of the week. And then I look at stats and I'm like, well, Ralph, that just tells you don't know nothing. So at least I found out I didn't know nothing. So, uh,
now, I like don't get me wrong, I I do believe Justin Fields will see some playing time, but I don't think it's. I'd rather. It'd be hard for me to see that if he gets over 51% of playing time.
Oh, I doubt he will because they're not gonna lose a 4th round pick. That's valuable. 4th round pick in the NFL is very valuable.
Unless Russell Wilson just struggles so bad that they have no, but that Mike Tomlin just says, you know what, throw Justin in there. We need to see if we can get something better out on the field than what we're seeing now.
So Russell Wilson every year throws over 3,000 yards. Justin Fields has never seen that, but he rushes. So when you total all the scrimmage yards together, yes, he has more scrimmage yards total than Russell Wilson. So this last year, 2023, Russell Wilson was ranked 14 and Justin Fields was ranked 18. So in 2022, Russell Wilson was ranked 13. Justin Fields was ranked 26. But in 2022, Justin Fields was ranked 26 as a quarterback, number 7 as a running back, and total yards was more than what. So basically what I'm saying is the more he touched the ball, if you did that kind of calculation, the more I touched the ball, I produced more yardage and more touchdowns. So that would rank Justin Fields higher than Russell Wilson, even though in positional parts, he's ranked lower. So if you do that math per touch, Justin Fields would pass Russell Wilson. But still, I think the ploy here is they're getting Russell Wilson at a very cheap contract. They're giving Justin Fields a little bit because he did improve this year on not running out of the pocket, and he did run scared at Chicago. Now, is that his choice? Was it the offensive line? The offensive line was middle ranked. It wasn't dead last, but it was ranked, I think, 18 or something. There's 32 teams. Yeah, 18's close to the bottom. That's not good. But
Yeah,
there's other quarterbacks that played at levels like that, did not run as much, and still got the ball out. So it's also his patience. It's his understanding and reading the field of when he's going to let go of that ball and him getting nervous too quick. And I'll give you a prime example. We're going to go back to college ball. We're going to tie it in and go back to college ball. We're going to talk about one of the greater teams that was out there.
oh,
I'm
here we
not,
go.
I'm not going to say, now look, I'm not a fan of this team, but they were a great team. So let's not hold nothing against them. So they had Alabama with Tua and Jalen Hurts. There was a time Jalen Hurts couldn't stay in the pocket. Jalen Hurts was the original starter. So he had to work on that skill to get back in the pocket. Tua was a pocket passer. Tua, yeah, he rushed, but he knew what he was doing. Like he could get the ball out. Now, I understand at the last of the season when them both were going to split off to the NFL, why Saban made his decision. And at the time, it was a good decision. And I thought it also helped Jalen out. Jalen needed to get into another environment, learn a little bit more, and he wasn't going to be the starter at Alabama. Everybody knew Tua was going to be the starter. Then 2 quarterbacks are good. They're good in the NFL. So you can't ever take that away. But what I'm saying is, I think Justin Fields never got that training. And you kind of seen it at Ohio State, but not as much because Ohio State did have a good O-line. When he played for Ohio State, we had one of the better O-lines in college football. So he didn't have to, he could sit in the pocket for a minute and say, okay, I got that receiver, I got this receiver, and I got this receiver. And he could do more design runs. You don't always have that luxury. And there was times Alabama didn't have that luxury. And the reason why Alabama didn't have that luxury is everybody went to their A game when they played that team. It was like, we're here for a championship, even though it's the first game of the season. So it's like everybody is balling that day. And so your offensive line has to work even harder. And Jalen, he had issues with that. And now you see in the pros, his first year with the Eagles, you kind of seen it come out. You're like, oh my God, quit running the ball. Throw it. And now he's developed and he's got better at passing that ball down the field. Do I think Justin Fields will be the future at Pittsburgh? I would like to say so because Russell Wilson is a lot older than him, but I don't think it's going to be Russell Wilson either. I mean, I think this is a medium point of what do we got and what are we going to do with it? And if it's successful, we're going to keep it because we like the guy. But if it's not successful, we're not losing no money. I think it's like a total of $4 million they're spending out of their pocket for 2 quarterbacks that are starters, that could be starters. Now, All of them finished above 32. So they're not dead last as the worst quarterbacks in the league, but they're also not the number one quarterbacks. So what I'm saying is, it's just, I was just a wow. When I seen all that unfolded, I did not ever predict or thought that that occurrence could happen. To see two starting quarterbacks end up on the same team in a year.
Well, let me make this short and sweet for you. When it comes to in Dynasty, I'd be terrified.
Yeah, that's what I am. In
But
Dynasty, I'm terrified.
because, I mean, look at it this way. For one, the NFL literally viewed Justin Fields as a backup quarterback, and you can see that with the trade they literally just made.
Yeah.
Now, I thought, and be honest with you, I thought that their Justin Fields would at least had a starting, had at least had a starting chance somewhere else. But at the same time, the NFL, they see things differently than we do because they don't care about fantasy. They just care about trying to run their team and win the Super Bowl. But the way I saw it, it's good that they're both of them there. But even if both Russell and Justin Fields is there, dude, that damn Steelers offense is well. Who are you throwing it to? You literally just have George Pickens, and then because you traded away Deontay Johnson, who was like quarterback's best friend with all the targets he was getting from everyone. So literally, right now, if you look at it, they just have George Pickens, and then you sign Van Jefferson from Atlanta on a 1-year deal. And then you have Calvin Austin, who you drafted 2 years ago. And then, you got all these other people that, they're not bona fide studs. So you have Pat Frymuth. That'll help because, Russ in the past, if he wasn't, especially in Seattle, if he wasn't throwing a Tyler Lockett, or throwing deep to DK, he loved his tight ends.
So yeah. So let's make this a game, Austin. Let's just you and me.
Please do.
If you want to, it's up to you. Unless you agree with me, then we'll move on. We won't even make it a game. But before I make it a game, let's talk about the recent news that came out today about the whole situation at the Steelers. Let's talk about what ESPN and Steeler Nation and all them guys are talking about. Because that's the only alerts I'm getting on my phone right now. So I'm like, But there's an alternative here. I honestly don't think Russell Wilson will be the permanent fixture of the quarterback. I think in 2024, you'll see him play maybe 51% of the snaps, but the next year you won't see him at all on the team. I don't see that happening.
So
I do see Justin Fields is going to stay. And I think it's going to.
You think they're going to sign him to an extension to stay with the Steelers?
Yeah. I do.
I don't see it.
Okay.
I just don't
all right,
see
so it. I think Justin Fields is going to stay at the Steelers, and Austin does not. So we got that on tape.
Because if they did, if they were just going to get Justin Fields and then have Russell, they got Russell Wilson first, and then they bring in Justin Fields. Why would, if you were going to give Justin Fields an extension, why not start him now?
Because honestly, they thought they lost the trade war. They thought they lost the trade war. There was a trade war going on, and a lot of it came to light, and a lot of it's been talked about now, where the Raiders was going after them, and then they decided not to. So Ryan Poles had other teams vying for it, and the NFL has confirmed that now. So a lot of people said that's rumor and speculation. No one knows. We don't know. But if it is some truth to it, now we see that other people were underhanding other people, and the Pittsburgh wasn't going to pay all that money. Russell Wilson was begging anybody to play somewhere. He was literally, look, Broncos took $38 million paying the guy to fire him.
He literally
whatever reason.
3 teams
and another thing, Ryan Poles said the biggest reason he had to release him is he could not keep Justin Fields on the team and draft a quarterback because it would not build a very good locker room. because
Well,
everybody
apparently,
there supported Justin Fields, from the fans to the players. And if you had kept him in the locker room, whoever they drafted would not have been successful. And that is a true statement. That happens in a football locker room when a quarterback or someone has won that locker room and everybody's on that guy's side. The newcomer is not going to get the respect that he has. So then you have an infighting. What happens in infighting? The team's not successful. They had to make a business decision. So the Bears all along, and I hate to say it because I didn't want us to think they were going to do this, they had, no matter what, get Justin Fields out of the building before the draft. They could not wait till the draft because a lot of people said they could have got more money. But I think with all the shakeups they had in the NFL quarterbacks and the runs that are going on right now, I don't think anything's final. I think what we see is just the outer edge. Some of the trades are final, but there's some stuff that there's other wide receivers that are still available for Pittsburgh that can go out and get them. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for any team to still build.
I'm staying away from both of them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm staying away from both of them. Nothing looks good there. I don't see both of them being with the Steelers next year.
Oh, I wouldn't
It
pick
just,
him up. I've been
it
trying to trade
just,
away Russell Wilson for the longest time. I honestly thought that the Broncos were going to try to build him up and get him something. There was more than just play because his play's good. He's almost breaking the top 10. There's got to be other issues that they can't deal with him for them to say goodbye.
well, I mean, him and Sean Payton couldn't mesh.
No, they couldn't.
They had two different philosophies of how they wanted to run the offense.
Well, that's why you
And
see Jameis Winston no longer with the Saints, right? He did things that he wasn't supposed to when the coach told him not to. So, I mean,
well, I mean, you know
if
what to
you're the
do
coach,
now.
you're the boss, and you decide to do something, you got to at
If
least
you
listen.
if you want to stay on the team, I guess you know what you need to do then.
Yeah. But I mean, for some reason it didn't mesh. And I hope the Broncos the best because I'm kind of curious what they're going to do. I mean, my problem is I got away from watching the pre-drafts and mock drafts. And the reason why is, like I told in a previous episode, this year I decided not to listen to all that stuff up to the draft because the last couple years I constantly listened to it and I dwelled into it. And when I got there, it was like only 20% what they said was going to happen happened. And I'm like, what I did find out, what I missed out on is the big important thing is paying attention to free agency. Free agency matters. Where players land matters in fantasy. So it's like, I think that's where I kind of went more my avenue now. It's kind of looking at what's going on. And I just thought that was an interesting thing. I would stay away from both quarterbacks in the Dynasty League right now. I would not want Justin Fields on my team. I wouldn't run after Russell Wilson. I would want to see more. So, like when a redraft starts this year, unless one of them quarterbacks did a really good job, I'm definitely not going to try to draft them in my redraft either.
Well, I guess it's a good thing you ain't been looking at the mock drafts lately then.
Yeah, I just get mad. So,
Let me throw you an interesting one real quick.
all right, throw me one so I can throw
So,
my mic.
this is from Daniel Jeremiah's 3.0 mock draft that he dropped a
Okay.
couple of days ago.
Yeah, I
You
turned him
know,
off a couple days ago. Go ahead.
So his mock draft, he's got the Cardinals actually trading back with the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are jumping up to the 4th spot, pick JJ McCarthy.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, I get
And
that for quarterback.
but then the Chargers, they went Malik Neighbors because they needed, obviously they need wide receiver help. And then Brock Bowers, instead of Brock Bowers going to the Chargers, he's going to the Broncos.
I can see that.
So I thought that was
I
pretty
kind of felt like
interesting.
when Hardball gave away all his wide receivers that he might go Malik Neighbors.
But my thing is that the Broncos need a quarterback. Are they really going to rely on who they have right now?
Yeah, I can see the Broncos trading up to get a quarterback.
They need to, because right now what
Yeah.
they have is not
And let me
going
tell
to
you,
work.
I know we didn't see a whole lot in college because what we've seen is enough. If you look at JJ McCarthy's tapes and you watched him play, he has a lot of high potentials. Michigan had a good team. They had a good running team. They had good offensive players. They had a good O-line. I mean, made his job easier. And I see, just watching some of his tape, he could really be successful in the NFL. And a lot of people are like, oh, no, no, no. I'm telling you guys, he's the underliner. I mean, he's one of them guys that's going to be a catch if you can get him
He's
on
the
your
best.
fantasy.
He's the best pro-rated quarterback out of all of these rookies that I have been keeping an eye on, in my opinion.
So let's go way, way out. Let's just go and throw the hat. Like, I mean,
Throwing
as
a hat.
far I'm throwing it as far as I can. I'm throwing it outside the house. I'm stepping
All right.
up. We're going to college real quick. So, yeah, we got a pretty good class of quarterbacks coming out, but we also got to think next year is going to have quarterbacks too. So, I think we're going to have first rounders next year too. There's sometimes you're offered a trade, you look back and you say, well, do I need to really make that trade? And this is fantasy related. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at, well, I got a first rounder this year, but I have two next year. I don't know where them first rounders are going to be. I know where that one first rounder this year is, but I'm weak in both categories. Now I look way out and I see what the projections are next year, and I look at what I have now. But can I land one of them, and am I that trustworthy of one of them, or do I have a senior quarterback that I think can get me through the year? I would rather use him and then go with the other offensive position that I got to fill because I have to beef it up to be surviving in the Dynasty League. When I say way out, I'm not doing that much research where I'm looking at a guy coming out of college and guessing. I'm looking at the big perspective of like, how am I building my team? And if I need a position that I know next year I can draft for, but I already have a quarterback that's going to do me fine this year, I'm going to go ahead and stick with the quarterback I have this year because I know what's happening with that quarterback and I don't really trust the class. I'm not going to make that decision until I can't trust him no more. When I feel like it's done past his point of trust, I need to put this. I have an opportunity to grow my other position, and it could fail too. I could pick that guy, and he end up being nobody. I mean, there's people that are projected to go first rounds that fail in the NFL and also in fantasy. So when I say way out, I'm looking at, okay, there's a huge class coming out, and only a portion of them are actually going to make it out. But can I wait that long? And do I have a chance this year with what I have? And that's when I make a decision. Okay, I don't want to do that trade because one, I'm giving away my pick for this year. Then I have to worry about next year, and then I don't fill my other needs. So when I'm building a fantasy team, you're looking at your needs. And yes, if you have the one-on-one, you're going for positional power. But anything outside that, you need to be filling. If I need running backs, if I need tight ends, if I need a defensive guy, you need to start looking at them positions because if you need them and you bypass them in your draft, how are you going to get better?
So you draft. So I guess when you get into the rookie draft, you draft for your needs over talent.
Not in all cases. Now, I actually need a wide receiver, so I only have one.
Well, then you're set for this year. So I mean, you shouldn't have. You can get your need and this
Yeah, but
generational talent.
let's just swap this. Let's turn this back into year. Let's say we're going 2022 draft, and I need a wide receiver. I'm grabbing Bijan. He's not a wide receiver. He's one on
See,
one.
let's see. That's when I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes. That is when they're in the draft. Sometimes, depending on where the draft value is, they'll draft need over talent,
Yeah,
which is, in my opinion, is kind of like, oh, I've been guilty of doing it before, but at the same time, I always try to see what round I'm at. Where pick are we at right now? If this is a good value to pick, this position here, or if it's something I could wait
and
till
trade
later in
back
the
or something.
rounds. Now, even so, even if I don't, this is the thing, even if I don't, let's just say I have a stock full of receivers, old and young, like I'm pretty set for this year and like future years to come. Even if there's a wide receiver coming up, which I know is like a generational talent, I'm still going to draft that wide receiver, even though I do need running backs. I'm still going to draft the talent over needs because you can literally trade to try to get your needs through trade, and you don't want to miss. You don't want to be the like. I don't want to put the Eagles on the spot, but you don't want to skip over Justin Jefferson and then wind up grabbing Jalen Rager instead, thinking he's going to be the guy when you could have had a generational talent.
Right.
I mean, it's the same way how the Cowboys were whenever we skipped over Randy Moss. And I forgot who we got, but obviously he was nowhere near how Randy Moss is great.
Oh no.
So I
Yeah.
think it's more. I just believe it's better to go ahead and take the talent because later on you can just trade your other talents that you have to try to fill in the spot of what you need. Going on
So
down the line.
I'm gonna ask you opinion, and this is to try to get because I'm actually confused about that. I sit there and I fight myself over this one.
Right.
All right, I'm in a draft position,
Mm-hmm.
and it's midway through the first round. And there's a
Okay.
player that's potentially going to go at the end of the first round or at the beginning of the second round, but I don't have a pick at that time.
Right.
Now he's a need for me, but you believe he could actually be. Is just say let's go ahead and hit his landing spot. I'm gonna say he's going to go to Dallas, and I think he's a good player for Dallas. And
But also,
I already know his draft place. I know the place he's going to. I know the position he's playing in, and I know it's a need for me. But he's not really ranked talent like Dynasty has him more at the end of the first and the second. But if I trade back, I have a potential chance of losing him because there could be another person on that 12-man group that decides they're going to draft for a need too and take him.
well, if you're it gets a little fuzzier when you're close to like the end of the first round and the beginning of the second round because that's when I believe if you are going to do something like that, I think like that would be the best spot to go over need and talent if you're kind of the back end of the first round and the beginning of the second. I think
Yeah,
that's the best time. But what I'm mainly referring to is like if you're like let's just say 110, you know, go the other way, like 101 through 110. I mean, you could probably argue 110 too, but I think 101 and 110 is really the space where I would go talent over need. And then, like, if you go to like the 110, 111, 112, and then the beginning of the second, that's when if I got the 112 or the 111, and I do really have a need, and the player that is coming up, even though there's like let's just say like a running back that's really going to be good, but I know if I don't pick him now, he's gonna like when it comes around my turn. If unless you do a snake draft, but we do a regular draft where you go 1 through 12, and then it goes back to the person who has the first pick instead of like the snake rookie draft
yeah, but you
where
also keep in
with a 1 2
mind,
turn.
yeah, but you keep in mind some of these picks are trades, so you might end up having 3 first rounds. That's through trades through the year. But when you're trading, you don't know where these first rounds are a lot of times. Some of these trades happen before the first rounds are assigned.
It would have to
So
be a it would have to be a it would have to be a special reason for me to pick need over talent. But in most cases, I'm going to get talent over need because I know if he becomes great, then whoever I had as my starter or that was really good, I could just trade him to get either try to fill in that asset or get more assets for the future.
yeah. So
It just
in my
it
in
just
my
really depends on how it just really depends on how your structure is and what your mindset is. You got
yeah,
some people who are just gonna draft needs, regardless because that's just what they're belief in. I'm not saying that's like the wrong thing to do. Like I just think it's my opinion, I just don't think it's the best thing to do. But, some people think I really need this, so I'm just going to go get this at the 105, and then whatever happens happens afterwards. Which hey, if that's the way you think you need to run your team, that's all fine. But just to me, it just had to be a really special situation for me to choose need over talent.
so before we cut this show off on this episode, you have any situations you want to talk about real quick? Because we're going to have a part two. We're going to go into a part two. So if we got more, we'll cover it in part two. But if you want to do it right now, we can get one more in.
No, I think we could start off in the second one because we did go on pretty long on this one.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, yeah, we'll do a part two to this discussion because this is interesting. We got some more. We still ain't covered the platforms. So I think in part two, we'll cover the platforms and also discover some more players. I'll let Austin pick a few out because I kind of went on my rampage with the Steelers and the Fields. It's like when I started talking about Harbaugh and the Chargers, I still got a big question. And then when you talk about your draft, it makes even a bigger question. I'm like, okay, but I kind of, I kind of already felt when he got rid of his wide receivers that out of all the wide receivers that was coming out, at Hardball's perspective, and this is me just guessing, I'm not in his mind, thank God. He was going to pick Malik Neighbors, and it didn't shock me. It didn't go, oh, I just seen it. But that's all I'm going to say about that. But with that being said, if you guys like the content, hit subscribe, hit the like button. Getting closer to the season. Right now, our normal release time is around. We've been doing really good at getting every show out on Wednesday, and we usually have a show that comes out during the weekend. So we have 2 drops during the week. We try to talk everything fantasy related. And we wanted to catch what was going on in the NFL, and there's a lot going on. So we thought, well, we're going to go ahead and take a break on positional rankings because we got plenty of time. We are still going to do the IDP 15, top 15, which is all the positions together. So that's coming. So please tune in. But we did decide that we're going to make this a part 1 and part 2 because so much to cover. We want to get in talking about the different platforms that you can play on for Dynasty and what suits your needs and our experiences. And also, like just in this show today, we discussed how we felt about what was going on in the NFL and how did that impact us in Dynasty. And that's mainly what we're talking about is Dynasty football right now. And like I said, if you like, hit the like button and subscribe. All right, Austin.
Don't forget to share.
Forget to share. Sharing is
Sharing is
caring.
caring.